Why should you powder coat? Because spray paint sucks every time. The first thing you need to do is get yourself some metal. I have a piece of presumably steel here that I'm going to use to make the world's worst GPS mount. I'm going to mount it with GoPro mounting pads and GoPro arms to the base plate that came in the original GoPro Hero box. I'm the guy who saved that and decided to use it for other projects. So I'm going to stick the GoPro mount to it, cut this piece in half, or at least where I drew the line, and then proceed to powder coat it. So the first thing we need to do is cut it down to the size that it needs to be. As always, safety first. Assuming you survive the cutting and shaping process, you can move on to step 2, which is prepping the metal. There are a few ways to prep the metal. If you're currently experiencing mo money and mo problems, you can use laser ablation. If you're a real man who has a blast cabinet in his kitchen, you can use sandblasting. Or if you're a horrible husk of a human being with no decency and no dignity, you can just use a wire wheel. What I'm doing here is just hitting this with a wire wheel to make sure that any galvanization or finish or polish or whatever it is on the metal, or if it's rust, if it's older metal, is gone, and we're down to clean, bare, raw metal. Fairly simple to do with a wire brush. Doesn't take long on a piece this size. Make sure you have a respirator, something to filter out the powder. I haven't read the MSDS for powder coat because I'm a busy business executive and time is money, but I'm sure it's not good to breathe. Next, get out your thing that you're spraying to. I shoot powder into a big Tupperware tub tote thing. Next, get out your electrode. Powder coat works by oppositely charging the part that you're powder coating and the powder coat itself, so they attract each other. Next, go to the powder coat manufacturer's website and figure out how long you need to cook the powder and at what temperature. Next, you can set up your powder coat machine, gun, thing itself. I use the Harbor Freight unit, which is not at all fancy, but gets the job done. First things first, untangle the rat's nest of wires that are always there. There's 4 different wires on the Harbor Freight unit. There's the power wire that goes into the wall that powers it. There is an electrode that clips from the machine with a little alligator clip onto the electrode that you'll be connecting your parts to. There is the dead man's switch that you usually will press with your foot, and that actually activates power to the gun into the electrode to charge them. And then there is the gun itself. I usually like to step on the dead man switch and just test the gun to make sure it's actually getting power and charge. You can do this just by holding it fairly close to the electrode. Put your mask on, and then make a gigantic mess and waste all of the powder that you paid for and then waited for a week to ship from the internet. But really, pour the powder into the powder cup. You don't need much, less than you probably think. Then you fashion something to hang your part from the electrode inside whatever you're going to be spraying in. I use this stainless steel wire. A simple Z-bend will do. This is not a heavy part and doesn't really need anything other than to be held and to have an electrical connection. Next, it's time to clean and hang your part. I use acetone for cleaning because it's a great degreaser and gets all sort of finger oils and everything else off. I also use coffee filters for cleaning the metal. Coffee filters don't leave any lint behind, unlike rags. If you use rags, sometimes you'll have lint hanging behind on the piece. The lint will burn up in the oven and will ruin the powder coat, so use something lint-free. Also wonder internally about all these chemicals you're using and their possible effects. Have a miniature panic attack and then hang up your part. Hang the part on the electrode, making sure that it makes a good electrical connection, and then we'll start spraying. Now for the exciting part. hook up your air compressor hose, press your dead man pedal, test that you have spark, and then nothing will happen. This is normal with Harbor Freight stuff. Adjust the knob, pull the trigger a bunch, check your air compressor, all that stuff is always good. Knock that box off, and try again. It'll work. The Harbor Freight stuff is not the greatest, but it'll work. You'll know it works when you see that black cloud shoot out, and you get good coverage. Make sure you're standing on the dead man pedal at this time, or you're not going to get any coverage. Once you have good coverage on one side, flip the part around. Be very careful when you do this to not knock any of the powder off with your hands. Remember, it's only a static charge that's holding the powder onto the part right now. Once you have good coverage, very carefully grab the part off the electrode with the wire hanger still attached. Be careful not to touch it or jostle it or disturb it. You see me here touching it, jostling in it, and disturbing it because I'm a rebel who lives on the edge, but you should not attempt that. Then go ahead and put it in your toaster oven, which is now a powder coat oven, which you must promise to never use for food cooking again. It is dead to you for that purpose. Then set your timer appropriately, remembering that the time and temperature it needs to cook is once the part reaches that temperature, so give it a little bit more time. And then just wait. And then once the cooking time is done, very carefully remove your part from the oven, remembering that the oven is like 400 degrees, and then hang it only on an OSHA approved powder coat cooling rack, such as the one you see here. And then wait for it to cool, and that's it.